Well, hello, everybody. I'm Huell Howes. Hi, I'm Huell Howes. Well, hello, everybody. I'm Huell Howes. Hi, I'm Huell Howes. Wait a minute. There's a helicopter coming here. Wait a minute. Oh, get out of here. Wow. Look. What is that? Let's get it out of here. Look at this. I thought what was my feet. Look at this. Oh, my God. And there they are, Louie, up there. That is an amazing sight to see as we continue our search for California's gold.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Huell's Gold. I'm Chris.
I'm Alan.
And we got special guests. Who do we got?
Hey, it's me, Eddie, your old roommate. And
Yeah.
And along with me, I got my son, Santiago.
What's up, Santiago?
Hey.
So, yeah, this week's episode, which we mentioned last week, is based in San Francisco, and I couldn't let the opportunity go to have Eddie on, because we lived in San Francisco together in the tiniest little studio apartment and loved every second of it.
Oh, what a joy it was.
See, that was before, Chris, that was before you and I were, good friends. We knew each other.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was when I was probably better friends with, Eddie back then, because we went in remember my Opel GT? We went for a ride in that. That was a long time ago, though, so.
Eddie looks like he does not remember that.
He does not remember. We got gas downtown at the AM PM, and then we're hanging out with Steve.
Is that the time that he took the Haley off-ramp going really, really fast?
Yeah, it's probably... Yeah.
Okay. Then yes, I do remember that night.
Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, I lived in San Francisco with Eddie from 2007 to 2008.
Yes,
correct?
I believe those are the years.
Yeah, because you lived there before me and after me. Like, your stretch was long.
Yeah, I moved up there for one semester. I actually lived in the dorms there for Academy of the Art. And then after you left, I did a lot of hopping around and ended up living there for another 3 years after you left.
That's crazy.
It
didn't seem like that long. It seemed like you came back really quick.
Yeah, no,
and then,
it was a long time, man.
So, Santiago, have you ever even been to San Francisco?
Mm-mm.
No? Well, I think it's time that you get to go. Well, obviously with like COVID and stuff, it's hard to go anywhere right now, but when it's over, if it's over, we all need to go.
Totally.
Oh,
now,
yeah, for sure.
I'm going to, before we like jump into the episode, I'm going to throw Alan under the bus right off the bat.
Just do it. Just get it over with.
So obviously, me and Eddie, we lived in San Francisco. We have kind of a sentimental feeling for the city. Alan, you lived in the like Bay Area adjacent area.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You self-admittedly don't really like San Francisco.
What?
Why can't you? Okay.
I'm kind of kidding. You don't dislike it. It's just like,
I don't dislike it. I don't see it. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
I don't get it. I mean, the city itself has a cool history, and I think that's super fun. I'm not, and this is what separates a lot of people. The people that lived up there, where you find your identity, at your major metro, you find your identity in is either Los Angeles or it's San Francisco.
Exactly.
For me, it was never San Francisco. Mm-hmm. For people, Fresno and north of Fresno, it was all about San Francisco. And I just didn't, like, going there, I thought it was one of these, it was cool when I was a tourist. But then, you see it a few times and I was kind of done. Because I'm not a fan of the weather. Like, I don't care for that weather. So, we're from the desert. We're from the desert.
Yeah, I was going to say,
I know.
Totally the opposite on that one.
Hey, I'm a desert boy. So, the sun is... It's what it's
Any
about.
chance I get to wear a hoodie, it's good for me.
It's gonna
be 100 next week, and we're not mad about it.
Yeah. I don't know what to say to that one.
But I mean, Alan and I have had this conversation. It's never been a debate because it's just a matter of opinion. That like you would prefer, like maybe not to live in, but to like stay long term in Los Angeles for any sort of stretch of time, as opposed to San Francisco. When total opposite. Like when I go to LA, I'm just like, okay, I got to go here because this thing is here, and I'm going and I'm out. Or my friends live there, I'll go visit them and get out, or like try and convince them to come up here. San Francisco, like any excuse, I'm trying to go.
It's funny, and I think it was most starkly demonstrated. It was a conversation we were having, and it was with a person our age. No, it was a person our age up there, and we were at, I don't know if it was a farmer's market in Pleasanton, or we were something like that. Yeah. We were talking, and she lived like Half Moon Bay, I think it was, or around there, around Half Moon Bay. No, it was in whatever. We're talking about Half Moon Bay, and I just like the cliffy, cloudy beaches.
Yeah,
like those are good for a postcard for me, but like I don't want to go there, kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And she looked at me cross-eyed, and she was just like, "What's wrong with you?" Yeah. That's the natural state of beaches. And I was like, "Well, here's the thing, I don't think so." But
maybe in Northern California that's true, but Southern California not so.
Well, because and it was after, because Kathleen and I, we would go take a trip because our friends they lived in Sebastopol.
Yeah,
and so we went to like Bodega Bay and then Jenner, these cities up there. And you look around, and there were people on the beach when it was overcast and like high 50s with their shirts off. And you're like, what? This is so confusing. Coming from like Southern California beaches where it's just sunny and warm water. But then I have this weird thing that I'm split because we love the Central Coast, which is a cold water beach.
It's the best of both worlds, Central Coast.
It is.
We'll get into that next week a lot, but it's got the rocks, it's got the sand, it's got the cold, it's got the hot. It's like,
yeah.
It depends on the day and the
I'll say
exact location.
This is getting off topic a little bit, but what's your favorite beach city in California?
Beach city.
Yes.
So we've gone into this before.
Yeah.
We already know each other's answers. Mine, because of mostly nostalgia, is Pismo Beach.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's a lot different than it used to be, but it's just the same enough to still count for me. And I'm going to go out on a pretty short limb here. That's probably only an inch off the ground, and say that Eddie probably agrees with me 100%.
I
Eddie,
do to a degree.
Oh Lord.
Well, I don't know if it's just now that I'm getting older and family, wife, kids, and all that, but Pismo is just a little too crowded nowadays. So I'm gonna.
Okay. Yes,
so
agree.
Me and my wife.
Pismo in the fall and winter. That's what I'm talking
about. I'll agree to that. I'll agree to
good.
that. Me and my wife actually quite enjoyed Morro Bay.
Mm-hmm. I can see that.
A lot of people like it. Because Alan, I mean, you and Kathleen, like you went camping there not too long ago. Yeah. And you're preferring that over like the Pismo area.
Yeah. I don't know what it is. It's just, if you want, well, I think it's this. Because when Bakersfield, I do like the heat, but okay, let's say it's third weekend to 105 or higher temperatures.
Yeah.
You can go and stay in Cambria or Morro Bay area, and it's just a total different world, only about an hour and 45 away.
Yeah,
2 hours away. So that's why we like the stark difference between it. So yeah.
And to like veer us back to San Francisco, even though this is my own fault for getting this far off track and talking about it for this long. People, even though San Francisco, it's a peninsula, 3/4 surrounded by water. The whole time I've lived there, all the times I've visited, I don't think I've ever once actually like touched any water anywhere there, like any ocean water or bay water, because there's no beaches. It's all like the piers.
Well, there's Baker Beach, right?
Of course, but like, who's going there? Not me.
We drove there, and
I've actually been to the beaches after you moved out quite a few times out there.
Wow. Okay. So just wait till I'm gone. Okay.
You were always working at night, so it was sleep.
I did have the
Yeah,
night
we
shift.
had opposite schedules, so
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
the beach at night in San Francisco doesn't sound.
it's actually
great.
pretty awesome. They have the open. I don't know about now, but they had open bonfire pits and everything. It was fun.
Like a BOMB, like a bomb fire.
Bomb. You can light bombs and run.
oh
It's
man.
like a Joe Dirt when he puts the whatever.
Mind you, too, we're like in our
Right.
early mid-20s at this time. So there was a Vons right across the street from Pacific Beach, and we would all hit up the Vons, get drinks, and just take them out on the beach. And
I was gonna say this sounds like a partaking in adult beverage type activity you
No.
had there.
no, it was
O'Doul.
It was
It was
O'Doul's
O'Doul's.
orange juice. We're good.
There you go. So
And Sprite and orange
Yeah.
juice too.
Ooh.
The Virgin.
of course.
Yeah.
So this week's episode, if you couldn't tell already, is about San Francisco, and specifically one very famous piece of San Francisco. And it's weird because Huell has made it a big deal throughout his career to say that he doesn't really like push tourist attractions. And this is totally just a tourist attraction in a lot of ways. Like there's no two ways about it. But it's all about the crookedest street, which, according to what we know so far, is Lombard Street in San Francisco. And I think all three of us have been there. I know Alan, because he told me his story last week. Eddie, we never went there together, did we?
I was actually trying to remember this myself. Were you with us when my parents visited?
The only time I remember your parents visiting is when your sister came along too. Was it that time?
I want to say it was that time because I remember my sister being in the car, but I'm not sure if you were with us when we actually.
I don't have a memory of that.
Okay, so probably not.
Okay. I was in the city, nonetheless. I just wasn't with you that day.
Actually, that was the same visit. My sister bought me the Family Guy Blue Harvest DVD, if you remember that.
It all comes back together now. Yeah.
Yeah, same visit.
So Lombard Street, it's just a crooked street, crookedest street. In this episode, Huell. Okay, put it in perspective. This episode number is 13,011. The episodes went up to 15,000 series. So this is like the third to last season of the show. Huell's at his peak, like, old madness, I would say, where he's just like making dad jokes and kind of just like the whole show is just talking to strangers. There's very little pretense for like segments or major historical accuracy even. Because, I mean, who did he get, Alan? Do you remember this lady's name?
Yeah, that's old Sue. Sue Saperstein.
So, who's she involved with? City Guides or something?
City Guides, yeah.
Yeah, and that's just like a company that I'm pretty sure they make like tourist books and also, as she says, offers like city like walking tours.
Which I did a brief Googling of that. They don't really have an online presence if that's the case. I could try again though. So.
Sue or City Guides?
City Guides.
Oh, okay. I mean, to be fair, some of those types of places.
Never mind. Yeah, it's pretty.
Just a huge
it's
website.
It's just the first thing that comes up. Yeah. Never mind. Scratch that.
So, you know, as someone who lived in the city and like had people visit and wanted to go kind of do some touristy things, this was one of the things that got done a lot. Just like Eddie said, his parents wanted to. I want to ask Santiago, does this look cool to you at all to go see?
Yes.
And you'd want to like go, would you want to drive it or do the walking part or both?
Good question.
Walking.
Not the driving though?
You wouldn't want to drive down that?
No.
Oh. Well, I guess. I mean, it's not as scary as it looks. At least my memory of it. At least the way I did it. We'll get into the driving in a bit, but.
So, do you think anyone's ever tried to drive up it?
They must have, just to like beat that, see if they can get all the way up before someone starts coming all the way down. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, or just like pull a permit and just have opposite day and then just drive up it.
Is there such a thing? Permit for opposite day?
There you go.
I mean, I know there's like, dinguses that just don't know what they're doing.
That's kind of what more I was getting at. I wonder if some, late at night, some people decide to go straight up.
Yeah.
Set it down, so.
Well, the thing about this street that the main memory of it that I have as far as myself was I really only had two friends in San Francisco. Eddie was one. We lived together. We knew also, like, just to put it in perspective, Eddie and I are both from Bakersfield. We went to high school together. We were friends, like, tail end of high school for me. And then, like, you're like, what, 2 years younger than me? So you were still in high school. And then we hung out a lot. And then he's like, oh, I'm going to Academy of Arts. I'm like, okay, whatever. I didn't know you could draw. And then he leaves. And I thought, like, okay, cool for him. I'll go visit. Fast forward, you only were there for the first semester or the first year?
No, it was only one semester before we decided, let's get a place.
Yeah, because once you were up there, I was like, man, I want to go. I want to do that too. And then the dorms were super expensive.
Oh my God.
Were they
yes,
not?
They were. Let me tell you.
Yeah, and so like getting an apartment was more advantageous for your dad, who was paying for it at the time. And so he's like, sure, go for it. And so I did. And we found which it's funny, in hindsight, it sounds expensive, but is like, would be super cheap now.
Oh, yeah.
Studio apartment.
Yeah. How much did we pay for that thing?
$1,400 a month.
For one room.
And
I said you can't get a bathroom for that now.
No, exactly.
Yeah, can you describe, just for everyone else, because I never visited you there.
No.
So can you describe your living situation and how it relates to a closet?
Okay. So it was a studio apartment. So you walk in and there's like a short little hallway with a closet door on the left, bathroom door on the right, and then just a big open living space. And then the like dining room, kitchen wrapped around the side. And the walk-in closet was sizable. And when we went to go look at this place, we saw, like, I think we could fit a twin bed in there. And so we took the chance. We got accepted. We got Eddie's old, like, childhood twin bed. And, like, crammed it in that closet. And it just fit enough where it could be up against the wall, underneath clothes, just hanging over your head. And then, like, enough space to barely, like, put your shoes on and have, like, a tiny little set of, like those plastic drawers that you would have, like, in an office that you keep, like, paper clips in. That's what I kept.
Like rolls of receipt paper?
Exactly. That's what we kept clothes in.
Well, I remember you had a pretty cool setup, too. You had a record player with headphones in there and everything.
Yeah, because I still, like, brought my entire stupid record collection up there. Because I definitely went up there with the thought, I'm going to be living here for a long time. So I brought everything, give or take. Like, I had my parents store some stuff for me. But,
oh, man.
Yeah. So I lived in the closet. And it was cool because it gave us, like, our own bit of separation, even though, for the first part anyway, Eddie's bed was, like, out in the open living space. So there was some adjustment that had to come with that. But then there was, like, the point, like, halfway through where we switched. And you got the room, and I was out in the front.
Yes. I actually quite enjoyed sleeping in that closet. It was pitch black.
Dude.
When
I don't think I've ever had the soundest sleep in my life except in that closet. Because there was something magical about that old twin bed of yours. I don't know why.
It was quite broken in from years and years of sleep.
And the closet, because the door, like the carpet was so plush, you could close the door, and it was pitch black, and it was fairly silent in there.
Yeah.
Unless your idiot roommate came busting in with a bunch of friends at like 3 a.m. when you have to go to work.
That only happened a couple times.
But it was an interesting experience.
I do want to say that apartment had the best shower pressure I've ever experienced in my life.
Dude. And the hot water would last for years.
Yes. Not to mention we had a shower radio.
We were living in the lap of luxury.
I was gonna say, it sounds pretty luxurious.
We could take showers for hours on end if needed.
Hours of showers.
What part of the city was this in?
It's in this little, because every neighborhood has a name to it in San Francisco. Yeah. It's what was kind of like sort of called Tender Knob, which is the kind of weird no man's land between Nob Hill and the Tenderloin, which is just south of there. And there's like a 2-street, like 10-block strip that is that weird kind of...
it's like a transition into both neighborhoods?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
It was on Sutter Street between Hyde and Larkin, right? Yeah. And we both were, even though it, like, in hindsight, it was cheap. We split the rent, $700 a month, which for San Francisco was cheap. We were broke as a joke all the time.
I remember being so excited to be able to afford a $5 footlong.
Yeah. And our paydays were like staggered. So 1 week I would get paid, and then we would go buy Subway or Jack in the Box or something for each other. And then the next week it was your turn, and back and forth. We were just so hungry and so. I lost
so much weight living there. It was awesome.
Yeah, because you walk everywhere. I mean, much like the episode here, where people are walking up this super steep hill of Lombard. And most people were, in the show at least here, very out of breath once they got to the top of the hill.
Well, Huell was doing some interviews. He was a little winded about halfway up.
Yeah. And the one of the main interviews that he has is with John Smith, who is a resident of the street, which it is something I always wondered, like, while living there and while as a tourist, like, do people really live here? Is this kind of just like some weird facade? Are people into it? And John kind of answers all those questions. And one that I never even asked, which is, who's actually taking care of all these flowers and trees?
I know, right?
Spoiler alert, it's him.
Well, Sue gives us a hint of that, right? In the beginning in her interview. Yeah. Because the city does not take care of it. It's a homeowners association.
Yeah. So
people pay into it for this public display. And then I guess John is somehow hired. The article I found from him is they referred to him as a high school dropout to rock and roll musician to brokerage firm executive.
Whoa.
Then after he retired, he became the gardener there.
He doesn't look all that, like, he looks barely middle-aged in this clip. So retired.
Right. That was kind of the thing, is because he was 54 when he started gardening, if this article is correct.
Yeah.
So and this was in May of 2004. So he is, if he's still alive, which I couldn't find an obituary or anything, he would be, how old is that? 16 years, so 70 years old, and he's from Boston. He's Boston native.
Okay. Well, wow, that's way more information than I thought you were going to find on this relative stranger.
Well, the one thing I wanted to find, is when Huell, he talks about, oh, what a beautiful view. And it's like, okay, yeah, there's the street and the city behind him, And he says, yeah, one of my Christmas cards, I stood at the top of the hill and had someone take a picture.
You wanted to find that?
Dude, I looked for that.
Yeah. I'm sure, I wonder, I just had 10 thoughts at once. But basically, first thing I wondered was the homeowners of this little 1 block segment of Lombard that has the crookedy part to it. Because that's the thing. Lombard is a very long street, and only one city block has the zigzag part to it. The people who live there, they're part of the homeowners association. They're paying into this. They're paying for this garden that's all around the street. They know what they're buying into when they buy the house. Mm-hmm. They know that this brings a lot of people. I don't know. They're kind of making this deal where all the homeowners, they're not into it. It's come on now. You got to know. You got to know.
Yeah, well, I mean, don't we talk to, what's his name? The guy in the...
We do, yes.
I'm sure we'll get there, right?
Yeah, we'll get there, because I wanted to actually give a little... I have a clip right now of Huell talking to John about the whole deal of living in this area, and it's funny because you get a taste of older Huell where he's totally, I would call it reckless with his interviews, just slamming into traffic to interview people that are driving a very reckless street. So let's hit this clip. Yeah.
All right, let's do it.
Now listen, we need to stand out of the way because people, hello, how you doing? Be careful. Keep your foot. Are you keeping your foot on the brake?
Yeah.
The whole time down?
All time careful.
All right, be careful.
Yeah.
Because sometimes these cars, these are all tourists from all over the world.
Yeah, that smell, that's the smell of burning brake pads.
Well, there's probably a way to do it, a proper way to do it.
Yeah, it is. It's drag your feet and put it in low gear.
Uh-huh.
It is. There have been accidents. There have been some pretty amazing accidents. We had one year a car flipped on its side and went all the way down the stairs on its side.
Oh my God!
And we've had many flipovers.
So you see it all here, don't you?
I've been there for some of the most amazing things. We had
here comes a cab coming down.
Actually had a tractor trailer try to come down this street one time.
You're kidding.
Yeah.
Now buses can't come down.
No, and neither can stretch limos, but that doesn't stop them from trying. And you can see by some of our hedges on the corners that they've been very unsuccessful in their attempts. Sometimes we're thinking about maybe we should put bales of hay on the street, to like a racetrack, because some people come here only to see how fast they can come down.
Oh my God.
You have to take the good with the bad. And
so, did you catch that part that John said about the whole stretch limos going down?
And the buses?
Exactly, yeah. I can't think of a better time to bring up Alan's story that he's told me numerous times that I never get tired of hearing of his Lombard experience. Hit me with this one.
It's not. I guess it's not that. It's kind of weird. So we were playing a sequence of shows where you play in front of other bands, what we called a tour, but really the 15 people that are there are other bands, and you have to watch them, and it's weird. Well, anyway, we're playing a show at Submission Art Gallery, and I forget what we were doing, but we were driving around the city.
This is you and your band went on tour, and you guys went all the way up to Pacific Northwest, right?
Well, we went to Bremerton. So yeah, we went to Bremerton, Washington.
Okay.
But San Francisco, we were there, and what we used was not a van. We didn't try to bum other people's equipment and drive a car like some people do. Which, by the way, this is it's like punk and hardcore music. So
very common punk tour etiquette that you're talking about: renting the van, or just having your guitars, and the drummer would bring his snare because the snare is always the thing. Yeah,
seriously. And then someone comes up and they just bring their head, a cheap head. They're like, "Hey, can I use your cabinet?"
Exactly.
No,
yeah.
No, sorry. So we were. Okay, so this is the background of why we purchased this vehicle. Because obviously it's not a van. and it's not a bus. Although there was a band called Outbreak. They played it because they used to play at Fresno. We would play a lot of shows there at the Chinatown Youth Center with Jeremy, who's on, who used to help with the shows there, run the shows basically.
He was on our show once. If you listen back,
he was on our shows, and he was intimately involved in that in the Chinatown, the Chinatown in general. So we were there, and there was a band played called Outbreak, and they were pulling. Basically, it was like a short bus, like a half-size bus, and they pulled a trailer behind it, and they built their, what do you call it? Like basically bunk beds inside, and they had a couch and everything inside of this bus, and they drove
like
across
a converted bus that they had made into like a tour bus.
Yeah, and it was super comfy looking. Mm-hmm. And there we were looking at, okay, if we want to go on tour a few times, what should we buy? And so, Bakersfield has some interesting people in the backwoods here. And there was one thing that we found, and it was I think it was an 84, it could be an 87, I forget, but it was a Toyota Sun Raider, which is a fiberglass RV, essentially, and it's put on top of this tiniest Toyota, like 4-cylinder engine with a 5-speed.
I'm sure people must have seen these going down the street at different times, because there's like big motorhome RVs. I think, Eddie, doesn't your mom still have like the big style like bus?
Oh yeah, she's
style
got
RV?
a big old 27-footer.
Yeah. So there's those big ones that like are scary to drive, which Eddie is. I always try and get you to take it out so we can go somewhere, and you're like, I'm not driving that thing.
I've gotten braver nowadays, so I've pulled it out and driven it around a bit just to get used to it.
Around the block ain't to the beach, though.
yeah. The 166 is definitely different than.
Oh, that's super sketch.
Yeah.
So there's those, and then there's the ones that like my parents had when I was growing up, which had like the Ford Econoline front to it, like the van front with the overhanging bed style motorhome, and then this one, which it just like a little Toyota pickup, 4-cylinder. Just tiny truck.
Dude, and it was like, okay, when we looked at it, the guy, how he described it, he's like, hey, so I didn't want to get it started, so I tried to use my backhoe to move it, and I crushed the front of the
what?
the grill. And I said, oh, okay. And then we look, and it's obviously has hit some roofs of something because the fiberglass was repaired by hand, it wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible either. It had low miles. I think it was under 100,000 miles, and it was an 18-footer. So it wasn't terrible. We pulled out the insides, and then we kept all of our equipment inside with us, and we slept inside. And we just ran extension cords to people's houses for heat because it was in the winter.
Mm-hmm.
And that was our setup because we saw people get their trailers stolen, and we just weren't really interested in that. So.
And this actually was a great idea. I don't think I ever got to see it when you guys were actually touring, because Zach, our friend and other member of your band, kept it in the back of his house for a while, and I remember him letting me look inside of it because I'd always like seen the pictures from the tour and wondered about the inside and how you guys were able to do this. And one thing that another story, which is your story, but I'll just kind of preface it, is that when you guys would go on long hauls, because it was a stick shift, right?
Yeah.
That like you would be taking turns driving, but one of the guys in your band didn't know how to drive stick. So is this true? Like you would get it up to 5th gear and then just like quick jump out of the seat, and he would jump in.
He said, "Brandon, you ready?" He said, yeah. Okay. I said, okay. So the passenger the passenger held the steering wheel. And then you just hop out real quick and hop back in, and then keep it in 5th. And if we have to stop, then you just have to pull over. But we didn't really have to stop. We didn't have to stop because it was a straight shot.
This is so dangerous.
So the way that someone described, I won't stay too long on this, but basically, I was talking to, as you know, because I used to be new mechanics and whatever. And I was talking to this person because that Toyota had this engine referred to as a 22R is the model. And these things are like bulletproof engines. Come in the 4Runners and the trucks. I mean, you've had a Toyota.
I was just working on my friend Andrew's yesterday with him because he's getting his 1989 Ford pickup, which is probably the same is probably the same exact model that was in this thing. He's
Okay,
getting his back up and running.
So this thing it's bulletproof. And the guy just looked at me, and I said, "Hey, I don't know," because we went to weigh it at the truck scales with all of our equipment in it.
Yeah.
And it came at almost 7,000 pounds, right? So, like, and so I was talking to him. I said, "I don't know, man. How are we going to go up Shasta, like the pass there?" He's like, "Alan, I'm going to tell you something. That 22R, it'll only go 35." Or no, he said 45. But it'll go 45 anywhere. Dude, he was so right. So,
well, it's funny that you would say that it can go 45 anywhere because you guys literally took it anywhere.
yes.
Segue complete.
Perfect. Because, yes, we took it and we made what we call a swoop-D among our friends, which is a sharp right. So we're like, oh, check out this road. We swooped it, not planning it, and ended up on Lombard. In an 18
motorhome.
At a motorhome, right? So Zach's driving.
Okay.
And we just had to negotiate the curves with it. It was a little sketch, but
because if you watch the episode, especially like in the middle part of it, when he's like Huell is stopping cars in the middle of the road, there's no turning back. You just gotta get down.
Yeah, like this Toyota Solara, whatever we're looking at, convertible.
At about 14 minutes, yeah.
He just stops him, because there's no way that with those little brakes that were on the Toyota, dude, it just wasn't happening. Because there was 5 guys in it, too. Which, among the trips...
7,000 pounds on those brake pads. Oh, my gosh,
but it was a dual axle, so it was pretty sweet. But Jeremy actually rode with us to Salinas on a show.
Really? In that thing?
So he got to full on ride in the motorhome.
Wow.
So
our guests colliding together.
So you can't take a bus, and you can't take a stretch limo, although people try, as John Smith says. Mm-hmm. But you can take an 18-foot Toyota Sun Raider.
And I mean, did he have to 3-point turn it, have to back up at all, or did he just?
We made it, but there's a few turns where I forget what they call it, like in road racing, like the apex, the top of the turn. You gotta that has to be right, or you couldn't make the curve. So, but he did it. Zach did it, but he was driving ambulances back then.
Oh, so that was that time. Oh yeah, he had all the experience.
Yeah, he was a pro. He was backing ambulances and stuff. So, yeah.
So Eddie, is that time with your parents the only time you came to Lombard?
Yes. It's the only time I've ever driven down it.
Okay.
And I was in the back seat, so.
Okay.
But I have passed by it many times just going by the cable car right up the hill.
Yeah, true. Because, the thing about it is, it was we just counted 16, 18 blocks north of us, so it was nowhere near where we would readily walk regularly, even to work or whatever, but if you were there and your friend who came and visited you had a car, which happens sometimes with us, sometimes they'd want to do that. Obviously parking is hard and you rarely would actually get the car out to do anything, but I think I've only personally drove it one time, and you just go super slow. Not too bad. Not like old New York dude who lives in the neighborhood at about 16 and a half minutes. So Huell finds someone who lives in the neighborhood, and he's all into it. He talks about how he's from New York. He likes to be up in the mix. So, other than living straight up in Chinatown, this is your best bet of having hustle and bustle around you.
All right, and this is Will Coleman.
Did you find any info on him? I doubt it. He's just a dude.
There are other Will Colemans that are CEOs in tech that it's definitely not him, younger guys, so I didn't find anything on him specifically.
Yeah, he's just a resident of there, just an everyday guy. Anyway, one of the most memorable times, I guess, of visiting Lombard was, I think I was going to preface this earlier, that I only had 2 friends in San Francisco. One was Eddie, who lived together. The other was our friend Regina, who lived there lived in the Bay Area for numerous years. In fact, wait, how did it work? No, because Eddie, you and Regina were both in my wedding, but you didn't walk together, right? She came after.
No.
Yeah.
No, I was with somebody else.
Yeah. So that was, but it was 2/3 of my wedding party were my only two San Francisco friends. She would often take family or friends to Lombard, and her thing, which, you know, Regina, I don't think she ever listens to this show. She's probably one of the most unique people I've ever known.
To say the least, yes.
To say the least. She would often come up with, like, wacky ideas. And her idea, whenever she would have people visit and take them to Lombard, is she would have someone take a picture, and we would stand in front of it and be the street. So we would have to, like, be in this cockeyed kind of pose, pretending to be the crooked street. And I played along once. After that, I was done. But
do you have a picture?
I do, yeah. I'll show you guys when we're done.
Perfect. You're going to show the world on Instagram?
I don't know about that. I'm wearing I'm wearing an odd outfit, so.
Oh, okay. So,
come on.
yeah, do it. Come on. Anyways,
we'll see.
Peer pressure, obviously. So,
yeah.
So there's a few things while we're still on the hill.
Yeah.
That I think is sort of interesting. One, between Susan and John, we get the maximum rate of cars per day, which I thought was kind of interesting. Because John gives us, they get about 5,000 cars per day.
Yeah.
Right? Where used to have 3 per day. And if somehow your car got stuck in a ditch, people would have a martini party, I guess. So a little different.
Didn't make much sense to me, but yeah.
It didn't. But then Susan gives us that there are, at peak hours, you can have 350 cars per hour. So whatever, kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But I did want to ask you, now that I'm looking at my notes here, did you ever see John pop his head out the top of a tree and wave at you?
While I was there?
While you were there, yeah.
No. Not at all. I mean, to be fair, too, I mean, Eddie and I lived there, what's it been, like 13 years ago? It's been a long time.
Yeah. How old's my son? 7, so yeah.
Yeah.
About
Twice as long
10,
as
11 years.
Yeah.
Well,
for me, at least. For me.
Well, I was wondering, because the lady that Huell's talking to when he pops his head out of the top of a tree, did you notice that she says, he's a good-looking guy, isn't he?
I noticed that.
Just quiet.
Silence from Huell. But it's a long, lingering silence before they finally cut.
Oh, let's just transition to the next thing.
Yeah.
But on the hill as well, it was weird for me to hear, and I mean, you can hear this if you skip around, but we've been watching California's Gold chronologically, so everything's Louis. Louis, take a look at this.
Yep.
Louis, right? Everything's Louis. And it struck me that he was walking down the hill, and he said, "Look at this, Cameron."
It always puts it in perspective. The years have gone by when Louis finally had retired from the show.
Well, at first, okay. The first thing that popped into my head was, "Look at this, cameraman," but then no. Look at this, Cameron.
Yeah.
So
Cameron Tucker is the latter years cameraman, and if you watch through all the episodes, there is this like transition period where Louis has retired, and it's like almost like the peak of Huell's kind of celebrity, and not only his but also Louis' celebrity, because he I don't know, I remember hearing it in like 10 different episodes almost in a row where Huell goes up to interview someone, they're obviously starstruck, and then they're like, "Oh, we've always wondered what our what Louis looks like, and now we know." And he's like, "Oh, that's actually Cameron." And they're like, "Oh, like yeah." Man. And then Huell doesn't explain and just steamrolls past into whatever he wanted to talk about.
So anyone who makes movies, if you can make a mini documentary called like Living in the Shadows,
yeah,
just make it about Cameron Tucker.
right?
Feel bad for the guy. You know, he did a good job.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And I mean, he's like you said, living in the shadows. And Louis was kind of like the mystique cameraman for quite a while. I mean, he wrote a book about his experiences, which we've mentioned on the show numerous times. But in reality, he wasn't there. I have the book right here. Let me just look. Because he wasn't actually there. I don't even think the majority of the episodes. Do you...
I'd have to pull my book out. I'm not super sure.
I'm looking right now. So it looks like he ended in the year 2001. So he went for and he only did like a handful of those in 2001. So
about a decade?
Yeah, he did about 10 years, but the show went on for, when did it end? 2011, 2012?
I think it's 12, yeah, but
so he only did half the shows. Poor Cameron, man.
I know. He got all the glory. But, well, what can you do?
I know. So, I wanted to get back into the whole part of, before we get into, the last segment here, because Lombard Street is a tourist attraction. It probably is sort of annoying to be in that sort of realm of a tourist attraction in one of the biggest tourist cities in the country. I'm bringing this up because Eddie had a number of jobs in San Francisco. We both did. One of your jobs is one of the rarest, weirdest jobs I've ever known anyone to have. You worked at the shell store.
like puka shells?
Yeah, like shell store, like seashells. He sold seashells down by the seashore.
I literally did.
Yeah. On, what is it, Pier 39?
Yeah. And if you remember correctly, you actually went with me to the job interview that morning.
Dude, that was one of the most surreal days of my life because...
It's so real.
I had been working at a hardware store in their paint department for a number of months up until that point. I go in on this day. Well, I get up in the morning. Eddie's like, I think you're like all hyped. Your interview wasn't for a while, but you were up and getting hyped for it. And I go off to work. I walk in, get fired. I'd never been fired from a job in my life. I still don't know why. It's like one of these things that bugs me to the end of my days. I'll always wonder what I did wrong. And then I was there for 5 minutes, and then I just get back on the bus and go home, and I walk in, and you're like, "What the heck are you doing here?" I was like,
"No, actually, it was even better than that. I was walking out of the building saw you walking up the block."
Is that what it was?
Yeah. So I was on my way to actually catch the bus to go down to the pier, and right on the corner of our block, I see you walking up, and I'm like, "Dude, what the heck? What?" I just got fired. I'm like, "Oh, well, want to go with me so I can get a job?"
Yeah, and we went to not Pier 39. We did not go to where your job ultimately was. We went to I don't know, it was Pier 2 or something, way around on the other side.
Yeah, it was industrial pier.
Yeah, it was where they literally unpack fish out of barrels and stuff.
Yep.
And I'm standing out front, I'm just devastated. Oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And you're in there, get this wacky shell job. It was the ultimate, I'm up top, you're down below, because you didn't have a job, and then in 10 minutes, whoosh, I'm no job, you got a job. It was insane. But, to the point, working in that, on Pier 39, fish, this is the mecca of seaside tourism in San Francisco. It must have been insane.
Weekends were definitely the most entertaining. Yeah, man, you'd see all kinds of walks of life coming through there, but it was constantly packed.
Yeah,
up until about 9 o'clock when shops started closing, it was nonstop.
Because Because sometimes we would go, if like someone was visiting, or if Regina and I were bored, we would just go over there and walk in and just see the insanity of it. And it was insane.
I will say the one perk of working there, though, is you get free meals from any of the restaurants on the pier.
What?
Oh, yeah.
So there was actually one place, I forget the name of it now, but they actually did have the option of red or white clam chowder to pick from.
Just like an Ace Ventura?
Yeah. So I've never had it, and first week I found out you can get a free cup of clam chowder. I was like, oh, okay, cool. And went up
and they
there,
said, is that the red or the white?
Yes. And I was like, what? That's actually real? This is. I thought it was just made up for Ace Ventura, but apparently.
Well, can you get half and half?
Like a pink?
No, like a candy cane or something. I don't know. Some swirl.
Wow, dude. You're going to blow everyone's mind.
Well, oh, man. Well, at Luigi's, you can get the pasta like that.
Yeah. The pink sauce.
Yeah.
One other like stupid little detail that I'll never forget of you working at the Shell store is, this was 2007. So we're like 3 or 4 years post the end of Lord of the Rings movies coming out. And, I have been and will be a Lord of the Rings fan forever. And one day you texted me and said, "You'll never believe who I just sold shells to." And I said, "Who?" And you said, "Elijah Wood." And I immediately just like jumped up. I'm at home. I jump up and I'm like grabbing my jacket, my bus pass. I'm going to go and try and find Elijah Wood. I'm like, "Are you serious?" And you're like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Are you sure it's him? Take a picture." Because you were like one of the first people I knew who had an iPhone too.
That's a story all on its own.
Yeah, true. And I'm like out the door, like going down the elevator when you're like, "I'm just kidding." I'm like, what?
Dang.
Oh yeah,
that's cold-blooded.
I was so mad.
Chris, I was hoping your first, just when he said Elijah Wood, I thought you were going to say, "Are his eyes as blue as I think they are?"
Like, why you chose Elijah Wood? Why you even chose to play this joke out of nowhere?
I'm pretty sure it was around the time when we were watching Disc by Disc as well. So
must have been because
the hype was there.
Yeah, I'll never forget. That was like I've never been fooled so hard.
That's pretty good though.
So I mean, we could go on with stories all day, but there is part 2 to this episode of the Crookedest Street, and Huell does his best at dropping a bombshell on us. And, I mean, I have the clip. We can just go right into it so he can explain it, and we don't have to. So let's do that.
Let's do it.
All right, here it goes.
All right, now I need to prepare everybody right now because you have some earth-shaking, revolutionary news to break right here on California's Gold. Let people down gently.
Okay, I hate to tell everyone, but Lombard is not the crookedest street in San Francisco.
Wait a minute. Lombard Street is not the crookedest. The most, I don't think crookedest is a word. The most crooked.
The most crooked.
Most crooked. It is not the most crooked.
No, there is another street that hardly anybody knows about.
Right here in San Francisco.
Right in San Francisco.
That's more crooked.
That's more crooked.
That's why we're here. Come on, let's walk over here because we got backup for this revolutionary news. These are the people from the good old, what is the name of the department here?
Department of Public Works.
Department of Public Works in San Francisco. Your name is?
Barbara.
And you have your whole posse here with you this afternoon.
That's right, absolutely.
Because Sue just kind of broke the word that Lombard Street is not the most crooked street. What is the most crooked street in San Francisco?
It's a secret. It's actually Vermont Street.
It's Vermont Street.
Correct. That's absolutely right.
Now, what is this based on? How did you compute this? How did you find out about this?
We've known for a long, long time, probably over 70 years, but we needed to double check. So what we did was we pulled out some maps from our files that date back to the 1920s and calculated what was the Crookedest Street.
And we've got the calculations right here. Your name, sir, is?
Bruce Stores.
Okay, what are we looking at right here? This is Lombard up here.
This is Lombard. These are construction drawings for Lombard. This is construction drawings of Vermont Street.
All right, so you've taken a segment of the street,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
This is how long?
This is 100 feet.
And you've got a 100-foot section of both streets. Let's put them right up underneath each other. Look at this, Cameron. Here's Lombard, here's Vermont. And tell me how you computed the fact that Vermont is actually more crooked.
There's more curvature in 100 feet on Vermont than there is on Lombard Street. Now there's a fine detail in here you'll probably get letters on. Surveying wise and engineering wise, there's several components that make up a curve: radius, length, delta. The radii on Lombard are actually 20 feet. The radii on Vermont are actually 21 feet.
So that sounds like Lombard is more crooked.
Lombard has smaller radii in their curves, in the arc of their curves. Vermont has more curves in 100 feet, more curves in a horizontal distance than Lombard does.
Are we splitting hairs here, or does this really...
Splitting lanes.
Splitting lanes. But this really, technically, is a more crooked street.
In our humble opinion.
Now, you're going to set off a firestorm of... Do you realize that every single tour book, every guidebook of San Francisco says Lombard is the most crooked street in the city?
We're not sure how they came up with that idea.
Do you feel guilty about bursting this bubble?
I feel guilty for the poor homeowners here.
So, I mean, do either of you really buy into this whole... We talked about it before, our thoughts on Crookedest Street. Is there a debate? What are you guys' thoughts again?
Well, okay, this is Barb, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so, okay, I think, Eddie, you were bringing this up earlier, too. She refers to them as a posse, right? And so I wrote out the IDWP, but that's not right. But I thought it'd be funny to have Insane Department of Works posse.
Because it's like the most mundane, bureaucratic part of government, the Department of Public Works. And they're doing the most mundane bomb drop of all time. Like, Lombard isn't the crookedest. It's actually this other street. But our criteria is kind of skewed because we're just making all this up and it doesn't really mean anything.
And it felt bad, because, it is. I think you're right. It's one of the more uninteresting parts of city life. And even Barbara, tells a joke and then just gives no time and then gives you the punchline. You're like, okay.
I know.
The whole thing is super funny. If I remember it right, I feel like that's what I saw from her. But
these guys, you can tell, they're just so happy to be out of the office because they put on their orange and yellow vests, even though there's no traffic anywhere near them. They're just like, we get to go outside, put all the pens in the vest pockets, put them all in there.
Who do you want? Get Bruce. Get Bruce. Get him over here. So okay, Eddie, have you been to Vermont?
Never.
Or do you know where it's at or that area?
I know the general area of where it's at, but
okay. 'Cause I'm totally clueless on where it is.
Yeah, I've never had a reason to go down to this area of San Francisco, so no, I've never.
Okay, so do you buy their reasoning here that it's if you just take 100 feet that it's sharper? Was that what they said? It's like
there's more curves within 100 feet, even though the radius of the turn is tighter. In Lombard, there's more curve because if you look at the maps, the Lombard map has 100 feet and there's just like a single bell curve in it, but then the Vermont Street one has like a curve and a half in that 100 feet.
I see. Okay, so there's more curvature in 100 feet that actually happens, but the radii is smaller or tight. I don't know how to describe it. It's just a sharper curve on Lombard. Then
I mean, that's the thing here. Like,
it's just
cool.
more condensed.
Yeah,
it seems like.
Dude, and the thing is, people. Okay, there's a few things here. First, I think Huell is right on the money when he says, "Hey, are you just splitting hairs here?" And Bruce, the comedian, comes out and says, "No, we're splitting lanes." So dad joke extraordinaire. The thing about Lombard, dude, Vermont, it's boring, dude.
Yeah,
he drives down both of them, and you can tell because Huell has commentary on Lombard, and if I remember correctly, it sounds just more descriptive. It's more exciting. There's people around, and there's like you can't make this like Lombard. So
I'm looking at the neighborhood. It's Potrero Hill where this is, and obviously people who are from this area because it's like Mission District adjacent, so it's not like totally in the middle of nowhere. But I do remember having gone to this area one time because there's like a FedEx package pickup. Like if they couldn't deliver your package, you had to go all the way down here to the FedEx center.
I think I've actually went with you to pick that up.
Yeah. Because I vaguely remember it was me, you, and Regina went all the way down there one time because it was such a trek. I'm like, you guys got to come with me. It's going to take an hour, even though it's only like 4 miles away. That's how San Francisco was. So debate away, crookedest street, it doesn't really matter. Obviously, people are not going to go all the way down to Potrero Hill just to drive maybe a slight degree more crooked street.
Right.
When Lombard is like, well, I don't know. It depends.
Well, I think 100 feet is that some sort of standard in construction? Why not 250 feet? Or you take the total length of the road and divide it, or something like that. It feels sort of arbitrary to make Vermont be the what is it? It's not curviest because remember Huell gets on Susan. I almost said curviest.
I know, right?
He tells her, "Hey, you're absolutely wrong." No, he doesn't say that. He's super nice.
That's the impression you get, though.
Wait a second. No, it's crookedest.
Yeah.
So, or most crooked. Doesn't Huell do that too when he's talking to Susan at the end?
Yeah, because he says, "I don't think crookedest is a word. Most crooked." It's like, bro, that's what you named the show.
It's so true.
So, yeah.
To me, it's not a draw. It's not a draw. Lombard. Huell thinks in the outro he calls it a draw. I don't think so.
I mean, it's these kind of like arbitrary debates that you could have about all kinds of stuff, like, oh, who's the best basketball player who ever lived?
Hakeem Olajuwon. Easy.
See, there's your wacky opinion just because he got drafted first in front of Michael Jordan, but whatever. Can you tell I'm watching that Chicago Bulls documentary right now?
Yeah, I want to watch it, but that'll be a whole thing. We talk about it.
So back to just like San Francisco days, because like I technically lived there for a shade past or a shade under a year. Eddie, you lived there for almost 4 years?
A little over 4.
Okay, here's I don't think I've ever actually asked you this. You lived there for a stretch before, like one semester, so like 6-ish months.
Yeah.
And then you came home for that summer because you had to like get out of the dorms, and then we had to find an apartment, and there was that whole period of doing that. And then our year together, and then your couple years after. That year when it was just you and I in that apartment, that was like particularly a pretty exciting, wild time, right? Like not wild in a like crazy sense, but like there's always seemed to be something weird going on.
Oh yeah, totally. What? You worked at some hotel as a doorman at some point?
Oh, dude, the stories just from that alone. Yeah, it was like a long stay hotel room where I was a doorman, like literally in a suit. And I had the graveyard shift, so I was there from 5 p.m. to like 5 a.m.
Yeah.
So I was there all night, and it was a cool job. Like I kind of regretted quitting that job, but not only that, like there's a lot of just like things that go on in when you have your own neighborhood. It really reminded me of the kind of like shenanigans that happen in Seinfeld, where you just have like this little segment of the world and so many weird things. And of course, if we're going to have a San Francisco episode, it doesn't mean anything to anyone else. We got to mention Old Man.
I was just going to bring him up.
Let's hear it. I haven't heard this.
I don't know if early episodes of Friends, they had the downstairs neighbor who eventually died.
I don't remember.
Oh man, crazy haired guy. He played Kramer in Jerry's sitcom,
like the meta Jerry Seinfeld
yes
thing.
Exactly,
yeah.
Same actor.
He would like hit the roof with the broom, like shut up there, guys. We had the same kind of deal with this old man who lived below us, and he hated our guts because we were so loud. And from time to time, he would come up in his old man cardigans and just so pissed at us. And the time I remember most is because, like I said, I had all my dumb records up there. You and me and like a few other people, I don't remember who it was, were just sitting around talking in the living room, and I was playing a record, and the record's literally called Discreet Music by Brian Eno, and it's designed to be listened to at the quietest of volumes. And he comes up, he's like, I can hear this music. I had to dress to come up here. And I'm like, dude, can you even hear it right now? Like, it's so quiet. And he just hated our guts so much. And it was such a sitcom experience.
Oh, there's a cup. He just has a cup on the ceiling listening for something.
Exactly, yeah.
I remember you walk in one day, and you walk in with a note that was taped to the door.
Oh man!
And
I forgot about that.
I believe the first two lines of the note were, "I had to dress."
That was his line.
Like, dude, what are you doing? Just hanging out in your underwear? Come on, man.
So it was definitely a fun time. I do kind of wish that the housing market hadn't gone so crazy, so people could like go live those kind of experiences again. But it seems tough these days.
Well, do you remember our other sitcom-ish experience with the open window and the neighboring buildings?
With that screaming like Russian lady?
Yes.
Yeah. There was this woman who, I don't know, because our building butted up to the back of like 5 other buildings, and there was like this kind of, not even a courtyard, it was like a parking lot for the maintenance guys or something below us. And sound would just reverberate in that area, and there was this, what I assume is a Russian lady based on her accent, who would just scream obscenities and insane conspiracy theories at the top of her lungs. And after, like, we would just sit there and listen to her.
Like she would articulate a conspiracy theory?
Yeah, totally.
What?
Yeah.
Those were our Friday nights.
Yeah. And after a while, I started writing down all the insane stuff that she was saying. And I lost the notebook. I lost the notebook when I moved back. It is such a big loss.
You wish Google Drive was up then.
Right?
You still have it.
I know.
Pages and pages.
So those nights sound fun. Those your Friday nights?
That's what you do when you're broke and you don't like.
Well, I was gonna say, I used to sit with my mom on Friday nights, and she would drink a little bit of champagne with some cran grape juice, and we would listen to the Police Scanner.
That does not surprise me at all.
Yeah.
In all honesty, it doesn't sound too far off of what we were doing.
Yeah. So
yeah, you guys. Yeah.
So having lived in San Francisco, and Alan, I think you might be able to, or even maybe Kathleen, through you, would have some sort of idea of maybe some non-touristy places that we knew about that are worth going to or seeing. Just kind of the insight that we had. Eddie, do you have any, like, I know I'm just throwing this at you right now because I just thought of it, but can you think of anything?
Most of it was touristy spots, like Dolores Park and stuff like that, obviously, but
Yeah, but
majority of the stuff, honestly, I would recommend doing is all food based.
Oh, totally. That's all I'm going with. Is
restaurants. Okay. Well, there was a time once I moved into the Mission District. El Faro burritos, hands down, greatest burrito. There's Roxy's Deli, very great sandwich for Dutch crunch bread.
Ooh.
Unfortunately, Cybele's is no longer.
Yeah, that was like our go-to pizza place. In fact, we would get calzones there very regularly. It was just like a block up from us. It was also like the meeting spot because Regina, our friend, lived like 5 blocks down right near the Stockton Street Tunnel, and we would meet there all the time. It almost served sort of as like our Monks kind of meetup spot, not nearly as much as Seinfeld, but it was very sad when, well, first they like the food kind of went downhill, and then now they're just straight up gone.
Yeah, the only place that I know of that is still around for pizza that I've always went to was Napoli Pizza.
And that had to become the next number one, at least for that neighborhood.
Oh yeah.
I'm not the person on my end. Kathleen has a few places. I only remember Tartine, the bakery there.
I never went there.
Yeah.
Well, there's one place that's like in the neighborhood. I actually didn't eat there when we lived there, Eddie. Me and Aaron found it years later when we visited. It's an Indian restaurant called Shalimar, and it was like a bunch of Indian grandpas who ran the place, and it was the most flavorful food, Indian food, or just almost any food I've ever had. Not like it didn't rely so much on spice. Like obviously I got it spicy because I like it that way, but like holy cow. Excellent.
Yeah, I will say San Francisco, oh man, just for food alone, so many different choices.
Totally.
Especially, us coming from Bakersfield, you got what? Mexican food and burgers.
Yeah. I mean, especially back then. We've expanded a bit now, but...
Yeah, of course. But, man, just trying Thai food and Indian food and all that stuff for the first time. Mm-hmm. Especially such a high-quality city, I would guess you would say. I don't know. Everything just... Especially sushi. I remember for the longest time I wouldn't eat sushi.
Man.
When I moved back, I would not be like, no... Can't do it. I was an elitist on San Francisco sushi at that point. But I mean, there's definitely good spots. But
there's another place
I was definitely spoiled. I was definitely spoiled eating there.
There's another place that is like a very old school San Francisco place. I'm sure a lot of people who live there or gone there know about it. But remember Tommy's Joint down the street from us?
Oh yeah,
yeah. That like Alan, have you ever heard of this? Have I told you about it?
I haven't.
Okay. It's like a cafeteria style place, but it's all like down home cooking. Like
so are you saying you walk up like a cafeteria style, or is the food like sit down and they bring you like reimagined cafeteria food?
No. I mean, this place is like 100 years old, so
okay.
It's like roast beef, mashed potatoes, kind of like hearty food, and it was all super cheap. And you'd spend like $9 and get 14 pounds of food. And yeah, you just go down the line and like almost like that restaurant Piccadilly in the mall. Remember that?
No, I don't actually.
Are you kidding me? Oh yeah, you're East Side. You wouldn't have remembered that.
No, I went to or Miller's Outpost instead.
But anyway, super good. My favorite part of Tommy's Joint is they have an entire like wine barrel full of pickles that you can just go get pickles whenever you want them.
All right.
Yeah, that's the reaction I was thinking to a barrel of pickles.
I was going to say, because I'm not a huge pickle person. Kathleen loves pickles, so she would be all about that.
There you go.
Man, I'm trying to figure out. The only thing I have in San Francisco besides that is coffee. We do a lot of coffee there.
Well, that's not my thing. So, and a lot of people like it. So, what's the go-to for people who would want that?
Oh, so there's I'm trying to figure out the guy's name, because when you go to Four Barrel, you can go to Sight Glass and then St. Frank's, places like that. But I forget the guy's name. I'll just tell a story.
Okay.
I was in 4 Barrel, and we got something. I think it was just, I don't know, like a cappuccino or something. And I remember because in my head, because third wave coffee is very weird, and I'm not cool like in any way. Like I'm like a 3 out of 10, if that. So I was in there, and I was like, "Oh yeah, can I get a cappuccino?" And the guy's like, "Cool." He's super nice, and he had a big beard and long hair, and this will be relevant later. And I get it, and I put it on the counter, and I'm looking around, like, oh man, this is really cool. Everyone's wearing their beanie above their ears, and have rolled up pant legs and stuff. This is cool. So
that means so much. I know exactly what you mean.
And I go to get a lid, and I just floop it. I just hit the it goes flying. And these places are tiny. These coffee shops, they're not very big. Coffee all over like the counter, on the floor. And the guy looks at me, and he's a pretty intimidating looking guy. And I thought he was going to be upset. He was like, "Hey man, no big deal." And he just went up and cleaned it. He said, "I'll make you another one."
Wow.
And he made me another one. And I'm kicking myself right now because after we left there, he started his own shop, and I cannot remember it.
Well,
Shoot.
If you remember it between now and when like you post Instagram pictures or whatever.
Okay. Yeah.
Tag him in or something.
Because that was like 10 out of 10, especially with you're not sure how you're going to be treated some of those spots.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, since we're kind of wrapping up this episode, and we did it last time, and it kind of like holds us accountable to ourselves. Alan, have you looked into any other episodes that we could possibly do? I know we kind of got next week figured out if we're going to stick with that, but
I think we should stick with next week's, what we wanted to do.
Okay, well, I'm going to throw a couple out for like people to watch and also for you to ruminate on, because I was looking through some. And now, as soon as I say that, all of them have just blasted right out of my head. So, no, I remember. I think that because you mentioned this last week or the week before, that we really need to pay tribute to one of our major losses that we had in this town. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Yes.
The Noriegas one.
Oh, sorry, they meant San Francisco.
No, our town. Our town.
Sure. Oh, yes, that's a sad one. You know what? That's probably a good one to do.
I think it is. I was rewatching some of it, and it was one of those. I didn't go there very often, but it hit me. Eddie, have you ever been to Noriega's?
Not once.
Do you even know what it is?
Nope.
And that's the thing. Like, it's one of these things that I think it would be fun. It would have been fun if we had all gone, and now we can't. So
yeah, and it's always it is a bummer. Anyways, okay.
I think I posted about it. Noriega's was one of our Basque restaurants in town. It was around for decades and decades. It was one of Huell's favorite places. He did a whole episode on it. He had small segments on it in at least 2 other episodes. So he would come up just like from time to time, just drive up from LA and eat there. So it's a shame that it's gone for a number of reasons. So I think we should do that one soon.
Okay. You want to do it next, or you want to do the one we talked about earlier?
Yeah,
next.
We'll see. We'll see what we're feeling.
I like it.
Well, Eddie, it was fun reminiscing about our days. We've only like scratched the surface on our silly stories because most of them are not appropriate for the podcast. But
this is very true.
Yeah. Like I thought of like 10 different things where I'm like, oh man, oh yeah, that part. I can't say anything.
You just gotta, edit it out. Yeah, no, it was cool. It's cool hearing your guys' stories. I hadn't heard a lot of them.
Yeah.
So,
well, with that, I think that you all should come along with us next week and every week as we continue.
Huell's Gold.